Hi, everyone. It's Maureen, the Power of the Tribe. Well, I have a return guest, was someone from Find Your Voice. And so thrilled to bring her back, Maria Tomas-Keegan, with Upside Down, Right Side Up, Turning Transition into Triumph. Oh, what an amazing book. It's not just a book that tells a journey and a story and is vulnerable that Maria has shared. It's a really good self-guided, prescriptive, really gets you where you need to go, amazing book. And I'm going to just open it there. Maria, welcome back. So good to have you today.
Thank you, Maureen. It's delightful to be back, and I love your background. You look great in blue.
Thank you. I'll take it. So let's get into this. Okay. The book. And everyone, you need to pick up the book. You need to have it in your arsenal of transformation and surviving. So you had me at the point where coming down the stairs, and I'll do a little lead in. This is in the beginning of the book. I'm not giving too much away, right? So you were in your second marriage. It was miserable. You knew it was a point where it was not working, and you were just holding back and just putting your head down and going forth as much as we do as women. But you came out trying to get out of the house, going to work, grabbing your bag, being quiet as possible. And there was the man with a knife, like pointed at your stomach. Let's go into there. What that looked like and where you are now, and wow.
Well, that was definitely a turning point for me. There was abuse in this second marriage that was verbal, mental, psychological, emotional, and now physical. And that was the turning point for me. It was my breaking point. And thankfully, nothing happened because I found my voice for the very first time. I've never been able to scream. I still can't. I don't know where it came from, but I screamed, and it woke him out of his rage. He dropped the knife, and he dropped to his knees, and he apologized, and I went, I'm done. And I walked out of the house absolutely shaking from head to toe, and called the police because I didn't know what else to do. The police weren't very helpful. They said he didn't hurt you, so we have nothing to hold him on. But it was at that point I just knew that I had to change me and my approach to this relationship, and indeed to a lot of other things in my life, because this was indicative of how I was going through life. I was compromising my own values to keep the peace. And when I started thinking about that, I realized that I've been doing that a long time, going back to my childhood. So there was a lot of stuff that I had to address. And that was the catalyst. That really scary moment in time was the catalyst for me.
So within that, though, being the amazing leader and one that pours into others, you channeled that through, and we'll get into the journey, but you channeled that into a way of helping others and supporting others and leading them through and actually holding their hands and bringing them to foot. So let's open that up a little bit about the 7 steps, about the 5 petals, about, I love the book. But let's lean into this a little bit. Tell us a little bit about what normally can happen with so many, and how really there's hope to move from transition back into a right-sided up teacup filled with light to give others.
Yeah, I love that analogy of the teacup. Maybe we'll get to that in a minute. But one of the things that I believe that, and this is an adage everyone has probably heard, when the student is ready, the teacher will arrive. And that's exactly what happened to me. At that turning point, I started to, I opened myself up to learn what I needed to know in order to change who I was and how I was approaching life that wasn't working for me. And I had phenomenal teachers. Some of them don't even know they were my mentor. They were people I read their books. I would listen to their teachings if they were on television or radio at the time. There were no the podcasts were probably just starting. I didn't even know about them. Now I'm doing one. I don't know how that happened, but so what I do now is I teach what I've learned. And one of the things I learned through this whole process of going through change, and so change is what happens to us from the outside. So for me, this particular change was having to face getting a second divorce. The last thing I wanted was to be divorced, never mind divorced twice. So I tried to make this second marriage work for way longer than I should have. But what I decided to do is figure out how do I approach this? In retrospect, and what I've shared in the book is what I believe, or from my perspective, the 7 phases that we go through as we are moving through a transition. So one of the ways you can think about this is like by the seasons of nature, right? From fall all the way to summer. And there's some phases along the way as we go through those seasons. And the first one is wearing a mask. So I think that at the very beginning, we recognize something's wrong here. And I don't really know what it is, but I have to be able to breathe again. I have to be able to figure out what is going on here. But in the meantime, I have to live. And this is where we can very easily stuff down all the emotions that we're starting to feel and that are very confusing. And we put on a mask so that we can get through the day. So I was a career woman. I had a responsible position and I had a staff who depended on me, and I couldn't be falling apart all the time. So I had to choose when my emotions came out. So I put on this mask that had a smile on my face and a twinkle in my eye. And everybody thought I was doing just fine. They knew I was going through some stuff, but I did not let it out. That's how I got through the day. And then the second phase that I went through is that I can handle anything phase. So I realized that the mask helped me, but I needed more protection. So I started donning this invisible suit of armor, and it helped me to pretend that I could handle anything. And then I realized that that's not working for me, and I need to get beyond that part. So the third phase is I call the mask cracks. So try as you might, if you're serious about really making a change, which I was, you can't help but feel the mask cracking and the suit of armor cracking, because there's stuff that's bursting out and you gotta let it out. The fourth phase I call all mixed up, because this is when the stuff is trying to get out of you. You don't really know what to do with it. There are a lot of emotions that are surfacing, and you need to learn to recognize what they are. And then you need to also believe that they bear gifts. So I learned that they do, as hard as it was to go through those emotions. The other thing I learned is that emotions need motion. So if we hold them back, if we stuff them down, they are going to come up whether you like it or not, and generally at the most inopportune time. So figuring out how to deal with them and choosing when, that's okay. So you can stuff them for a bit, like I had to. I still wore the mask. The cracks were starting to show. There was just so much I could really hold in all day long, pretending I was fine. So there were times and people that I chose to vent with, to share with, so that I could let all this mixed up emotion come out in an appropriate way at an appropriate time. And then phase 5 is from coping to surviving. So going through those motions, just coping, to a place where you actually are starting to see that there is hope on the horizon. And that hope gives you a sense that there is more possibility out there somewhere. Not quite sure what it is yet, but you're starting to look more through the windshield than through the rear view mirror, right? You're not sharing the story, repeating the old story over and over again as much, and you're starting to think about what's next. And then the 6th phase is, I call it change. Are you ready for me? Because this time, at this point, you are filled with anticipation. You've just got this sense that there's something better on the other side of this, and you want it, and you want it badly. So you are starting to envision what it is you really want. And you are centering, getting really, really centered and grounded in what you value most now, today, without compromise, with no apologies. This is who I am. This is how I want to show up. And now you're starting to put those pieces in place. And then the seventh phase is, it's called the stuff that dreams are made of. And this is where you put it all into action. When you start to take really passionate action to make things happen for yourself. The puzzle pieces that were shattered before are starting to come together in a different way. And there are holes where puzzle pieces won't fit anymore because you've decided that I don't want them anymore. That's not me. That doesn't serve me now. So there are holes in your puzzle where some things you want back. They might be in a different position. And there are other things that you want to make room for, and that's what the holes are for. So you release things that no longer serve you. You start taking action on the things that you want, and those start to fill the holes. So those are the 7 phases of transition as I see them, and they're a little unorthodox, but they worked for me, and it's how I help people understand that they're not alone. What they're feeling, what they're going through it's a process, and you need to allow it to happen. You need to allow it to flow, and everyone's journey is very unique.
And what's so amazing and powerful about your book is that 2/3 of it are about your journey and then journeys of other women But then you really get into again, I'm going to call it a prescription, because you give not only diagrams, but you give tasks, and you give examples and exercises to enable others to truly make this journey back. And that's really, really amazing. So, all right, so people that are living upside down, because our world is upside down right now.
Yeah.
And we may be the only ones that can write it back up. So first step first, and I know you had originally stepped into this with your ex-husband, but then you continued. Where's the first step with and I'm leaning in as far as coaching and mentors and their role for providing that source? Can you open that up a little bit, the role of either psychologists or maybe an amazing friend or coach? What does that look like in really getting to that journey?
Mm. So I think the first thing is you have to want something different. You have to not be satisfied anymore with it being, with your life being the same, which means you have to accept that things are going to change because you want them to change. And then I think the next step is to understand that trying to do it alone is the hardest road. So, and I tried to do it alone. You know what? I thought, I'm smart, I'm resourceful, I'm very capable, I'm a successful businesswoman. I should be able to do this. There's that word. I should be able to do this. Well, I tried to do my first divorce alone. In fact, I did it alone. What I realized as I was going through the second circumstance is that there's a lot of stuff that came up for me that I thought I had dealt with, and I hadn't. And it was all from, unresolved, painful stuff that came up in my first divorce, and I never dealt with it. I just stuffed it down. I went, move on, just move on. And that's what I did. And I didn't realize until the second journey through divorce that that's not a really good way of doing it. With my second divorce, a very dear friend of mine, who I talked with a lot about it, who is a nurse, but she's not a coach, she's not a therapist. She was a sounding board. She really couldn't help me, but hear me, right? That's what she could do for me. She said to me, Maria, I think it's time you reached out for some help. Because things were not going well for me, because it was starting to affect my career, which I adored. It was starting to affect my relationships because I didn't know how to move forward. So I got some help. My first coach was my lifeline. And she was one of the first psychologist coach / coach. And it was just the perfect combination for me. And she was my inspiration to help others. And it took a long time. I was still in corporate America at this time. And I spent 30 years in corporate America. It was after my last corporate gig, with whom I was for almost 20 years. When they divorced me and my entire global team, I really had to stop and think about, now what do I do? What's next for me? Another big transition in my life. And I've been through a lot of them. And when I look back, when I started writing the book, I got to look back on all of these times in my life. There were the 2 divorces, those were huge. But there were also 3 big career decisions to make along the way, not including the layoff. That was another one that really knocked the wind out of my sails, not expecting that. But as I looked back, when I was writing the book about, the loss of my parents, being a long distance caregiver for my father, now being a caregiver for my husband, losing two of my three older brothers within 3 months of each other, losing a very dear friend who was like my fourth brother, to a terrible bout with cancer. As I looked back, I realized that I had tools in my treasure chest, which is what I call them in the book, that they were resources that I could tap into. I could do this again. I could, I know what I know. I just need some reminders about how and where and when to apply it.
So we're moving into the piece, and I love some of the visual analogies. And when in the book you said, and if you need a visual, and there was the graphic, I'm like, oh, good. I'm a very visual person. But
me too. That's why I do that.
You used the analogy, and this is we're moving into the starting to deal with our stuff. But you used the analogy of luggage. And with luggage that you might have a Samsonite, you might have your knapsack, and everyone's giving you different pieces of luggage. And then you get to stand there and decide what luggage to take and what luggage to leave behind. Lean into that a little bit, because that's that next journey of moving forward.
Well, and it's also kind of like, I love metaphors and analogies. I use them a lot because I'm very visual myself, and most of my clients are too. But it's like the puzzle pieces, right? So we get to pick and choose what kind of luggage, how much luggage, and what do we put in the luggage, right? So, and what do we leave out? What do we donate? What do we give away? What do we burn? What do we bury? Because we don't even want anybody else to have that. They shouldn't have
burn,
right? Burn, yeah. So it's a choice. And we have so many choices, moment to moment. We have so many choices to make. And when we're going through this transitional journey as well, we have choices to make about what we want, who we want to become, different than who we are now. It's not that we're changing everything. We're taking some of that luggage with us. So, it could be your Coach bag, right? It could be your prized possession wallet that, that holds all of your precious stuff in it. Keep those. Absolutely keep those. But there may be a rolling Pullman that's got a lot of stuff in it that is old baggage that you don't want anymore. Well, you might want to roll that one to the dump.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what we get to choose. So whatever the analogy is that works for you, think about what it is you want to keep and hold it precious. What you are not quite sure about, and get curious about that. Really dig into that. Does it serve you? Why does it serve you? Where did it come from? Is it something you learned? Is it a belief or a fear that you learned when you were a child from parents or teachers? And you're not sure if it belongs with you now. Get really curious about that and figure out, where did it come from? Do you believe it now? Does it serve you now? If the answers to those questions are no, then they go in the Pullman luggage, right? That you're going to want to take to the dump. And you get to replace those now with new beliefs that will serve you and carry you forward.
Well, and then you get into the next metaphor, which is that you leave space, and so you have to sit in it for a while.
Yeah.
Not sit in, but sit with yourself. Sit with your limiting beliefs. Sit with some of this as you sort through. And
Yeah.
you use the visual of like a dark room, and it's peaceful and quiet. But if you sit there long enough, you'll start to see the glimmer of hope and the glimmer of light coming
Mm.
through as you're moving forward, and as that peace comes to you. But you need to allow yourself this. I
Yeah.
loved that also going through.
You know, I call it giving ourselves grace. You know, just the grace to sit with it, and it's okay. Even if you don't, even if it doesn't quite feel right or good, that dark room can be very, it can be very daunting for some people and scary. But know that when you're in a dark room, dark rooms have windows and doors. It's not four walls and a ceiling with no way out. I don't know of any room like that. So think about this room as having as many doors and windows as you need. And when you're sitting with your stuff and trying to figure this out, every so often you're going to see, like, I don't know where it comes from. There's a breeze and it blows a drape in front of the window ever so slightly, and you see this glimmer of light. Or someone on the other side cracks a door open and you see a glimmer of light. That's the hope. And you latch onto that and you know, okay, I'm not here alone. There's somebody on the other side of that door, and there's a way out. I'm going to go out that door when I'm ready. I can relax now. So it's just, it is, you know, it's kind of, it's meditation in so many ways. You can do it with, you know, guided help, you know, put on a pair of earphones and listen to someone's voice guiding you through. Or do it yourself. Just guide yourself with your own words, and be sure your words are kind and supportive. And I talk a lot about, and in my, at the end of the book, in one of the modules that I go through, it's called Finding Your Voice, and it's self-talk. How do we talk to ourselves? We need to be kind. We need to talk to ourselves as though we would talk to our very dearest friend, and to help them. So talk to yourself that way too. Kind of shut down all that negativity and allow the positivity to come in.
And then the piece from that comes forward, and you really do spend a lot of time, and this is so with our journey with women in the tribe, and going forth, and with our men in our tribe, the the journey to vision, and
Mm.
and the absolute such importance of vision, and vision becomes everything. With me, it's just everything starts with vision, and that within your vision or your purpose or what you're called to do. But with vision, then you move forward, and you really, you open up a lot of space for vision. So can you lean into that a little bit?
Right. Yeah, that's so true. And so much of that happens when you're in that dark room, because your imagination starts to play, because you're getting to that point in your journey where the possibilities, though, you know, those glimmers of light that we talked about, that's hopeful, that's possibility. Uh, that gets the imagination moving. And when we are ready to create what it is we want, that's where we start to write down our vision. Everyone that I work with has, you know, gets to do a written vision, something they can read. Vision boards are great, but written visions are so powerful. I love doing it as a letter. So every time I write my own vision, it's a letter to my mom, who is no longer with us. She was my best friend, and I want her to know. So every year when I revise my vision, I update it. And this year it was twice because of COVID. Things changed in my vision because of COVID, as it has for so many people. yet the vision is, I have a friend and mentor who calls it her anchor in all the storms. And I love that analogy, that the image that conjures, because when you have a vision that, or a purpose, right? Something that is guiding you forward, that is bigger than you are, then it will survive all adversity, right? It will always be on the other side of it. And if you never lose sight of it, because it's always here close to you, your vision, then you get to, take a little bit of a detour, but that road's going to take you back to what you want, where you want to go, and who you are becoming.
And then
Vision's
now
really important. Yeah.
you went into, again, then the importance of stepping into the being, and the doing from the being, which then you start to make that shift. And this is always depending on the lone wolf, which so many women are, and the journey on their own, and we can do this on our own. But stepping into that sense of being and the network and all those around you, which is everything. I love that. So tell us a little bit more about the doing versus the being, and stepping into your being.
Yeah, so this is all about learning who you are at the core, being authentic, and being really good with that. Knowing how you want to show up in everything you do as the authentic you, without apology. That's the being part. So the doing part is the actions you are taking. So we've got a vision, and we are doing, breaking it down into manageable chunks so that we can make progress and ultimately get to our bigger goals, the big picture, the big vision. But as we do all of that, we have to decide, who are we going to be as we do that? And that is getting really comfortable with who you are and how you show up as the authentic you in everything you do. And that's all part of the course that I take people through, is both pieces, right? So we gotta figure out the who you are, and that goes throughout the course, and we keep adding layers on that. And then the vision part, which is what do you want to do, right? And then how do you merge those so that you are being who you are as you're doing and creating this vision that gets you to that next chapter that you are about to embark on. Did that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And then again, you move into, and this is how we're going to do this together, because I provide you the framework. After I shared my journey and other journeys, now we're going to get down to work. And that's just it's just so giving, because it brings others forth through this in a guided, very systematic, very, very brilliant way.
Thank you.
I loved your book.
Thank
So
you.
where can people find you? What's going on? What's next?
So where can people find me? Probably the best way to learn about all of the resources I create for women in transition is by going to my website, which is transitionandthrivewithmaria.com. So on that site, you will see that I do a weekly podcast where I share women's stories, and I share expertise with other experts around the topics of change, adversity, transition, what we're going through in this world today, and how do we navigate through it? How do we be who we want to be in this season of change? which is not going to end anytime soon. I on the website you'll also find my free book, and I think I've shared a free book.
Oh, tell about the gift. Yes.
So the gift. Yes, I would love to share my gift. It is a free ebook, easy read. It is called From Darkness to Light, Learning to Adapt to Change and Move Through Transition. And that could be, you have a link to that on your site here. And there's also a link to that on my website. So yeah, I would love to offer that to your guests, to your viewers.
I love that. So now you're leaving us with the gift. It's you'll see it, guys, on the bottom of the interview. There'll be the gift. Click on it. Go visit Maria. Get that ebook and go from darkness. So as a gift to my audience, and as your generosity as a leader standing in this, I'm so grateful that you are standing in an empowering way, not simply in a, you bring forth guidance to move women and people who are upside down to right side up. And I am so thrilled to not only have I've met you twice, but to call you a friend. And great work, Maria. Thank you for coming on today.
It is my honor, Maureen. I love talking with you. It is always so easy, and I am just delighted to be here. So thank you for the opportunity.
To see you again.
To see you again.